Krishnan, staff and students of City Montessori School Campus 1, I, Shashwati Bhattacharya, am exhilarated to welcome all our participants and guests to our virtual debate 2020. Today, we are deeply honored by the presence of our guests of honor. My adulations for our esteemed judges, principals, and teachers of all other branches of CMS and other schools, and our guests from near and far. Before the ball is set to roll, I hand over the reins to a highly enthusiastic, gregarious, dauntless, ambitious, dynamic, never know for an answer principal, Mrs. Jayashree Krishnan, to formally welcome all and open the show. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Shashwati ma'am. I hope everybody can hear me clearly.
Yes, ma'am.
On behalf of the students, staff, and parents of City Montessori Rajiv Nagar Campus 1, I take this opportunity to welcome you to the virtual debate competition for the senior section of our campus. It is an honor and privilege to welcome our most respected founder manager, Dr. Jagdish Gandhi, our respected founder director, Dr. Mrs. Bharti Gandhi in absentia, our president, Professor Geeta Gandhi Kingdon, Director of Strategy, Mr. Roshan Faruhi, and Ma'am Sushmita Ma'am Basu, the Senior Principal and Head Quad, and all my dear fellow principals. I can see Nisha Ma'am here, I can see Aditi Ma'am here, I can see Samvida Ma'am. I would love to see everyone there. I would again address you all. Thank you so much for being here. We are also very, very privileged to have amidst us our honored guests and judges from all over the world. It's an international judgment scenario here. Mr. Ramesh Nair, co-founder, Peer Connections, California, United States of America. Dr. Chandana Mitra, Professor, Auburn University, United States of America. Ms. Annabella D'Souza, Principal, D'Souza School, Rourkela. Thank you so much for consenting to judge the debate competition being held today. I welcome you all to a literal war of words where we disagree to agree. Post-pandemic, there looms the fear of uncertainty where one fears that we may be staring at a global recession. Having said that, I personally see light at the end of the tunnel, as I believe India has focused on the 3 R's of relief for the vulnerable, recovery of the economy, and reform of the financial system, the useful mantras, as India seeks to reinvigorate its economy. While there is hope, there is no role for complacency. We need to take all precautions, follow all advisories, and be vigilant. Though physically separated, we need to be united in spirit and mind. On this positive note, I welcome you all once again. Hope you enjoy the healthy exchange of fire and steam. Over to Mrs. Shashwati for the proceedings. Can you unmute, ma'am? Can you unmute yourself, please?
Thank you, ma'am. At the very onset of today's event, I wish to transport all my contemporary friends who were compulsorily made to write an imaginative composition during their schoolhood days on how life would be in the year 2020. What we could imagine then were traffic boom, robots replacing humans, capsules for food, etc., etc. Today, we are in that same year 2020. But this current scenario could never be imagined then. Today, no traffic boom in the industrial world, but economy boom? Well, that is the question for today, ladies and gentlemen. Our firebrands are ready to contradict each other on the topic of the day. Coming up shortly on your screen, ladies and gentlemen. So, well, we have already brought to you the topic for the day, which is none other than post pandemic Indian economy will boom. Time now for me to introduce our renowned guests, judges. They are the renowned judges for us who have honored us by consenting to our invitation. Mr. Ramesh Nair, CEO and co-founder of Peer Connections, Irvine, California, USA. Mrs. Annabel D'Souza, Principal D'Souza School, Rourkela. Dr. Chandana Mitra, Associate Professor, Auburn University, USA. You all are heartily welcome to our show. Before we begin with our virtual debate, I need to tell you that we are uh, presenting it on before you to just understand whether the conditions in the days to come, the months to come, will change or not. And now, without whiling away our time, let us get set and go. Over to our first speaker of the day. And the first speaker of the day today is Mohammad Aman. Judges may please note there is some technical glitch with Kashish. She will appear very shortly. So we are beginning with Mohammad Aman, who is on the third in the list. Thank you so much, judges.
Mohammad Aman, your turn.
Even before the COVID-19, the global economy was struggling against trade protectionism, US-China trade wars, European uncertainties over Brexit, falling energy and commodity prices.
Aman, can you keep your mic closer? Your microphone closer?
And just a minute. I'm just a second.
All the students are requested to keep the microphone closer. You may begin it again.
Yes, ma'am.
Your time starts now, Aman.
Even before the COVID-19, The global economy was struggling against trade protectionism, US-China trade wars, European uncertainties over Brexit, falling energy and commodity prices. The world wakes up to an alarming data every day. With the infection count at 4.28 million, 292,000 lives claimed, and a global recession unleashed. Though the number of new confirmed cases is starting to level on a global basis, the real picture is, however, fragmented because different countries are in different stages of the pandemic right now. The statistics emerging from the situation is not heartening. During the lockdown, 140 million Indians have lost their jobs. As per a Barclays research estimate, as of April 14, the lockdown cost Indian economy $26 billion per week. Averaging all estimates, the GDP growth for the year 2020 is likely to go down by a negative 0.5%, the worst since economic liberation in 1991. The lockdown has also caused losses to the Indian e-commerce sector, amounting to 3,016 lakh crore per week, with the sales of everything except essentials banned and initial confusion as to what essentials comprise of. The crisis is pressuring governments worldwide to lay out swift monetary and fiscal policies to support the credit markets and to sustain the Indian economy. The government has just announced a 20 lakh crore fiscal stimulus package, which is about 10% of the national GDP. It also includes the currently in circulation 1.7 lakh crore economic package. At this juncture, we must do away with fear and focus on recovery and resilience. The need of the hour is to focus on the following points: bringing back demand, recovering revenue, building digitally robustly, laying out shock-proof supply chains, being innovative and future-focused. As we wait to see what the lockdown 4 has in store, we should not wait hoping for back to normal, but buckle up for extraordinary effort and aim at emerging stronger than ever before. I hereby rest my case. Thank you.
Judges, please note the speaker took 2 minutes 31 seconds.
Ma'am, please unmute.
Shashwati ma'am, you have to unmute. I'm very, very happy and glad to see our
Thank you.
most respected founder manager, Dr. Jagdish Gandhi, here. Sir, we are very, very glad to have you here, and your blessings means a lot for our children, for all of us. Thank you for being and joining with us, sir. Our children have prepared a very good debate on a very, very topic which is for the present scenario. Yes,
Thank
Shashwati.
you, ma'am. And now we have Amar, who is wanting to ask a question to Muhammad Aman. Yes, Amar, you can start.
Sir, you stated in your speech that during this time we have to focus on bringing back demand, recovering revenue, and whatnot. But sir, do you realize that it is the financial middle class of the country which has to bear the brunt of this? Since it has any incentive for them to do so, how can we expect them to work day and night on this?
I completely agree with your point that it is the middle class who has to suffer a most gruesome loss of the pandemic and the lockdown.
But as I just
As I just mentioned, that the government has just announced a 1.7 lakh crore economic package just for the middle class to help them support whatever things that are required, and also if they need any financial help or something that is related to medical emergency. And the government has also announced that they will be providing 3 months of money to both the employers and the employees, providing food and rations to 80 lakh workers. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you, Aman. May I request all our audience, our guests in this group, Zoom group, to mute themselves so that at least it is uninterrupted. Thank you so much. And now in the line, we have the fourth participant in the judges list. It is Vishal Mishra. Vishal Mishra, you may put across your case.
The year 2020 has been tagged as the worst year of the 21st century. The present scenario of world economy is really in a sorry state. And recently, due to COVID isolation, the country Canada experienced negative inflation for the first time since the 2008 recession. Good morning to all. I, Vishal Mishra, stand here strongly opposing the motion. Already, the Indian economy was in doldrums pre-pandemic. The World Bank and the big three credit rating agencies had downgraded the Indian economic growth for the fiscal year 2021. And let me remind you, this is the biggest downgrade India has ever seen since the 1990s economic liberation. Exports are the Indian economic pillars, so to say, and based on the recent data, the Indian economy has a humongous amount of $323 billion US dollars worth of goods in 2019. This is aggressive export strategy and too foolish to follow. But the government had no other option, and it appeared to work against the 22% depreciated Indian rupee. But let me tell you, my friend, this same ideology will become the very reason of our demise, the demise of the Indian economy. All industries are hit hard during this challenging corona lockdown period, especially the automobile industry, the electronic industry, the recreational industry, and the luxury item industry have suffered the biggest blows. No labor force is allowed, and whatever relaxation is given by the government is for the already tax marginalized medical sector, which was a burden on the Indian economy pre-pandemic. And the disturbing fact that within a month of lockdown, unemployment rate soared from 6.7% on 15th March to 26% on 19th April is evident of the trash state of Indian economic system right now. And the Indian economic spine was already shattered to pieces pre-pandemic too, since this 6.7%, which we are talking about, this unemployment rate was a 45 years low. The so-called MSMEs or the Swadeshi startup, which were the only hopes of the Indian economists, are now, as you and me know very well, are sealed and eating dust. And this is evident as recently the cab car company Ola had to lay off 1,400 of its employees in just a single day, following a remarkable loss of 95% monthly revenue. Let me tell you, my friends, this has left a mark. This has left a mark of anguish and uncertainty among the people of service-based institutions. But this 1,400 layoff is minuscule when we compare to the current Indian labor situation, where more than 140 million people are now homeless, unemployed, and suffering for the food. To put that in perspective, that is 14 crore sources of governmental revenue perish. There are natural stresses on the still surviving supply chains as non-registered movement across the states of India is essentially blocked, and therefore it becomes virtually impossible to track the rescue of such markets that never really existed on paper nowhere. The Indian market too has suffered the biggest loss. On 23rd March, the Indian stock market had recorded the lowest drop ever in the Indian history. When the clock struck 12, in the single hour, Indian investors lost more than 6,300 crore rupees. Let me tell you, my friends, the agricultural sector, or I should say the perishables in generally, are also facing uncertainty. And let me make it more coherent by giving here an example. The internationally famous Rajniti industry, which supplied a good employment to more than 6.2 million women across the states of Sikkim and Bengal. These 6.2 million women now are hungry and desperate about the future as exports are dropped by 8%. To summarize what I said in the past few minutes, I would like to conclude that The Indian economic growth has always been borne on the shoulders of the Indian labor, and that must continue. Otherwise, we would be undeniably seeing the biggest burst of Indian economy, and we would be consciously pushing more than 150 million of direct labor into pits of hunger and constant misery. I conclude by stating we must ensure no Indian should die of hunger. Thank you and Jai Hind.
Judges, please note the speaker took 5 minutes.
I can see all set. Who is wanting to ask a question for refutation? Shashwat Vimal. Is that you? Yeah, you may ask your question.
Sir, you said in your speech that the Swadeshi startups, which were the only hope of the Indian economy, are now sealed and eating dust. But don't you think that help given to these MSMEs, like the 3 lakh collateral help and the debt renunciation, will actually help them attain an essential capital for the pandemic-free India? Please throw some light on that.
So I think that comparing MSMEs with the big giants and just by giving them more loans and making them more dependent on the already fractured economic system will be of any help. I do not think that. And this economic policy is for 3 years loan only. So they have to repay the whole loan in 3 years. That means they are more poor and they are taking more loans and they have to pay the big loans in a short amount of time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, both the speaker and the one who refuted. And now over to, for the judges to know, the first participant in the judgment list, that is Kashish Agarwal, across your case.
Okay. Albert Einstein said, in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. Well, these days when many experts are predicting a huge shortfall in Indian economy post-lockdown, I, Kashish Agarwal, strongly believe that Indian economy would soar high post-lockdown. Good morning, everyone. Well, I do not know much about these experts, but one thing I know for sure is that these experts hardly know anything about human motivation and determined efforts. You know what? India spends around 617,946 million US dollars on just importing utilities annually. Imagine what wonders this money can do to the nation if it remains in the nation itself. And this is what the government caught. Their latest program of being vocal for the local is directed towards achieving this goal. One can't ignore the biggest gain made by the Nifty and Sensex this year in the past 11 years of rupees 4.7 lakh crores. Indian government made an increase in FDI limit of defense sector from 49% to 74%. Finance Minister Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman announced the end of government monopoly over coal mining by allowing private companies to do commercial mining on a revenue sharing basis. China, which had been the hub of manufacturing, assembly, and resource for most part of the world, is now being downgraded by the world. And this frames numerous opportunities for India. India could become a low-cost outsourcing hub for a number of first-world economies like USA. May it be IT, finance, or non-core items, India may always rise up to the challenge. The drive to look for alternatives can be beneficial for India to enter multiple trade channels. Globally, buyers have already shifted to India to source ceramics, home, lifestyle, and fashion goods. Reportedly, at least 300 of them are still trying to contact the Indian government for production in a wide range of sectors, including textiles, agri. And India has already agreed to work on a dozen of them. Impact, infrastructural development around manufacturing facilities, and a boost to national employment. So here one of the major problems is being solved, right? This year, government has proposals to hike import duties on more than 300 products, which would be beneficial for local productions to break out within the market, especially SMEs, OMEs, and ever so varied Indian handicrafts. The pandemic has instilled a shift in consumer psychology, resulting in an altered behavior towards the market, especially towards China and its products. India was over-reliant on China for APEs. The shutdown of supply chains called for an immediate need to either shift the market or become independent. And thankfully, our nation chose the second option and became the global alternate supplier for the same APEs. Consider Japan. Post Second World War, Japan was hardly expected to progress. But the same Japan, in not more than 3 decades or so, made US cry at the marketplace. It just rose like a phoenix from its ashes. So why can't India do that? However, predicting future is a tedious task. But yes, anticipating that a single seed could be planted to bear a massive fruit-bearing tree is what we need to do. No doubt that stabilizing economy would be a tedious task post-lockdown. But yes, with our combined efforts, this could be beautifully achieved by Indians. Home is all what we it is what we shall use. Thank you. I rest my case here.
Judges, please note the speaker took 4 minutes.
Thank you, Kashish. Now, may I ask the one to refute? Who is going to refute? Mustafa. Mustafa, please, your time starts now.
Yes, thank you so much, ma'am. It's interesting you say that we need to become, vocal for local and Atmanirbhar. But I think, what about then Make in India? What about India becoming 5 trillion economy? And then anti-China sentiments have always been there. Now, how you see
Actually,
these developments?
listen, the anti-China sentiments earlier were just limited to India itself. Like in 1962, if you consider, the Indo-China War caused anti-China sentiments to remain limited in India. But now these anti-China sentiments are widespread throughout the world. Like if every part of the world is now trying to downgrade China in a way, and this could be quite evident by the military threats given by China to India in the Ladakh region. If you notice the current reports, this shows that how much China is scared of India's upsurging chances to overpower its place in the world economy. I hope your question is answered, and this would be a boon for development. Mark my words, Mustafa.
Real bulls and bears. So now we have next in the line.
I would request Mustafa to keep his microphone a little more closer, because I think Kashish's voice was very clear. She had her microphone very close. I would request all the other participants also to hold the microphone a little closer, because you people have done such wonderful research, and it's really a pleasure to hear you children.
The next speaker we have here is Mustafa Zamir, and he is going against the motion. Mustafa?
Yes. Am I audible, everyone?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You see, I see it without doubt that post-COVID-19 Indian economy will burst. Well, I have several reasons to believe it. You see, after the imposition of a unilateral lockdown with just 4 hours notice, the government now has a Hobson choice, either to save the economy from paralysis or leave it on its fate. Before I go forward, I wish to draw your attention to the economic situation in India when COVID-19 hit the country. Mind you, we had witnessed 7 successive quarters of declining GDP. It was unprecedented. Our attention was completely turned away from the dire economic situation. Now the government will very easily blame the pandemic. Although the truth is that the origin of economic crisis lies in the government's misguided policies, ladies and gentlemen. The initial decision to lock down was unavoidable because in March, the only known antidote was quote-unquote social distancing, which meant a lockdown, by the way. In the absence of an alternative strategy, the government went from one lockdown to another one. Each successive lockdown has yielded diminishing results. Besides, it has spawned a humanitarian crisis of gargantuan proportions, ladies and gentlemen. Post-lockdown 1.0, every decision made by India has proved questionable in terms of the outcome. You see, the center passed the buck onto the states to handle the economy. The states were left begging center for funds. The ostensible help extended, that is liquidity to discoms, higher borrowing limits. These are so loaded with riders that no state government shall fulfill it until it is given some stimulus package. Well, one can argue with me that the government has already announced an ostensibly 20 lakh crore package, which roughly stands around 10% of the India's GDP. But, ladies and gentlemen, if we go into the nitty-gritties of it, we find that almost 80% of it is loan and contains only 1.1% of stimulus, that is fiscal stimulus to the country. Thus, the question is bound to arise. Is India's economic paralysis be solved only by loans, only by providing cheap credits? Look, the MSME sector, which is the backbone of the economy, it provides 25% of employment. This sector has been neglected for many years, and I think did not find anything substantial even in this package. You see, these sectors are unable to pay salaries to their workers for a couple of months, and this is surely going to cause a distrust amongst the laborers, in the system, and this will increase further layoffs, which means more unemployment. Already, mind you, unemployment in India is 45 years low, and this is going to rise. Let me tell you without mincing any words, at a time when global economy is going to tailspin, the economic policies of our country do not inspire confidence. In the coming months, the virus will infect more Indians and it will pass, but economic wounds will last longer. When economic activity collapses so suddenly, as it was due to demand slump and then unable to meet the payment obligations to vendors and banks, which leads to liquidity crisis, which then causes solvency chaos. This is going to create a full-blown economic crisis in our country, ladies and gentlemen. And you cannot put recession out of here. Wages are going to be lowered down. There will be less consumption, more morbidity, and poverty is sure to rise. It is going to prove death knell for our already plummeting economy. I rest my case. Thank you so much.
Nurus ma'am, will you tell the time, please?
The speaker took exactly 4 minutes.
Thank you so much. And now to refute Mustafa. Yes, it's Aman. Aman, please, you may ask your question.
So my question is, since China finds itself on the receiving end of global criticism, the question for India, however, remains, is it time to straighten up records by opening up diplomatic channels and bringing everything from Tibet to Doklam to economy on the table?
Well, I agree. I completely agree with you. But the point is that India's domestic infrastructure is not that good. And despite anti-China sentiment being there, I don't think that is going to be possible, because you see, investments in our country is not happening. And until and unless investments happen, how can you influence foreign companies to come and invest in India and surge demands? And secondly, I think that this anti-China sentiment is amongst the politicians, because they want to cover up their own failures in preventing COVID-19 in their respective countries. So, and the masses do believe it. Do not believe such things from their politicians or prime ministers or leaders. So I think this is the point. And for our country to grow, investments is necessary. And what we are doing, we are diluting labor laws in order to bring investments. I don't think that is a suitable step for India, because our labor is already manhandled in some way. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mustafa. For the judges to note, time now for me to welcome Shashwat Vimal to present his points. Shashwat Vimal, over to you.
As the coronavirus moves remorselessly around the world, every country in the world is worried about two things: saving its people and its economy. With the whole global north altercating, USA, EU, China, India has got good chances to climb up and fill the voids created in the hierarchy of the world because of the pandemic. Good morning, I am Shashwat Vimal and I am speaking for the motion. Post-pandemic, India's economy will boom. The pandemic has landed not only the MSMEs, micro, small, medium enterprises, but also companies. That is big ones into troubles. With the insolvency threshold raised from 1 lakh to 1 crore, definitely gives these companies some relief, some time to recover so that they don't get into trouble for either a year or two. Because this decision can be taken as a recognition of the fact that the last thing one wants is every other company in the country going into bankruptcy. If you are looking at boosting India's economy, let's look ahead. When the economical wheel of the world starts churning again, when the world literally starts working again, the government can't handle all the baggage on its own. It needs a backdoor support. And the public sector union reforms, ladies and gentlemen, the PSUs aim to provide that support. The government has opened every sector to the private sector, allowing maximum of 4 PSUs to enter every sector. It has categorized them as strategic and non-strategic. This decision will definitely give a good push to India's economy in the post-pandemic world, as well as mutually boost the government and these sectors respectively. If you're looking at boosting India's economy as a country, we have to first boost India's economy as the individual states. With the borrow limit of the states in the percentage of the GDP increased from 3% to 5%, definitely gives these states to boost their economy at their own level individually. Like the example of the state of Gujarat, which has already earmarked 33,000 hectares of land. Yes, you heard it right, 33,000 hectares of land for the companies of Korea, Mongolia, USA, Japan, which are looking to shift their centers from China to some other country in such a way that their Southern Asian and Central Asian centers do not get disturbed much. They are looking for a country which has a single tax scheme, isn't landlocked, has ample quantity of educated intellectuals and workers, plus not too rigid and not to lose copyright laws. So when MNCs arrive, which I think they will do, because India is a peninsula, we have a single tax scheme, the GST, I shall not say not too rigid, but not to lose copyright laws and ample quantity of educated intellectuals and skilled workers. So when MNCs arrive, they arrive with jobs. And India has always been the problem of unemployment. So when jobs arrive, people get jobs, they earn salaries, they pay taxes, and a large amount of taxes directly or in some ways indirectly do amount to a country's economy. But we should not forget that a perceptible change might take place when MNCs arrive, but a change is a change. And this change is very profitable for India. I'm talking about brain drain. India was troubled from brain drain for decades. But when jobs arrive and the international borders are sealed for who knows 2 years or 3 years, people will work, they have to work in their own country. And it's comfortable because if you work in your own country, you have both feet and wings. So when people work in their own country with integrity for the prime of their nation, a country is deemed to accelerate. It is deemed to boost. But within all this, we should not forget that our economical condition wasn't much better even before the pandemic. We were at a 45-year low. But now, when everyone is in doldrum, even the big sharks, they are in despondencies. Everyone in the marathon has got a nail in his foot. India has got good chances. In my opinion, a gust of these well-planned actions and the glory of the Indian mind could definitely give India's economical sailboat a good push in the post-pandemic world. With this, I rest my case. Thank you.
The speaker took 4 minutes, 12 seconds. Judges kindly note the speaker took 4 minutes, 12 seconds.
Thank you so much, Nurusman. And now we have who is going to refute. It is, I think, as Vishal. Vishal, I guess you are going to refute his statement. Please go ahead. Go ahead.
Sir, I think you mentioned, or I should say, the whole of your speech was based on optimistic results and optimistic outcomes, assumptions. I think you are being too optimistic than being realistic in this dire situation. Why are you so confident that India will be the only region chosen by the big MNCs for their outsourcing and not any other country?
Thank you. Let's look at factually. Like a company, let's take an example. A company is based in Japan. It has opened a center in China. Now China is being looked down upon by the whole world. So if that company wants to shift its center, where will it go? It will not go to Bangladesh. It will not go to Bhutan, not to Nepal, not to Myanmar. it will definitely come to India, because India is like a sailboat on the equator of the global north and the global south. The currents being the economical position, India could tip off any time to the global north or the global south. If the MNCs, I think the MNCs will pick India because it has more weightage towards the global north. It is a developing country. Thank you. I've answered. I think I've answered.
Yes, you have answered, and nobody is sparing anyone. Now, last but not the least, we have our speaker, Amar Safi, with his utmost enthusiasm, even when he is going to rest his case at the end. Yes, Amar, the floor is yours. Amar, your voice is ringing. We'll just take it.
Ma'am, should I start?
Now you can keep your microphone closer, I suppose, and you can begin once again.
The pandemic we are facing today has left the global economy in ruins. And so I can't help but think of Charles Darwin's theory of survival of the fittest, according to which the only faction of society which survives such changes in their environment and their lifestyle consists of the ones who are able to adapt to such changes. So the question which arises here is India a part of that faction? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for today's debate is the post-pandemic Indian economy will boom. And I, Amar Safi, stand here strongly opposing the motion. So let's start by looking at this logically. Logically, there is no way that the Indian economy could be booming after the pandemic has been handled, because there are a number of factors which contribute to the economy of the country. The most important affecting factors in a situation similar to the pandemic we are facing today would be the GDP, or the gross domestic product, the per capita income, which is basically the average income of the entire population of a certain area, and the expenditure by the administration. Now, you don't exactly have to be an economics expert to know that India's GDP had hit an almost all-time low of 4.6% even before the pandemic hit. But now, with the suspension of manufacturing facilities and economic activity all over the country, the GDP has plummeted. Now, when the GDP declines, all contributing sectors take it, be it the auto sector, the agricultural sector, or the financial sector. When these sectors are negatively impacted, the companies related to these sectors face budget cuts. And so what do they do in order to come to terms with these budget cuts? They start firing their workers and reducing their salaries at all levels. Now, when the salaries of these people are reduced, they also face budget cuts and subsequently start firing the people working under them, which includes the domestic help workers and the daily wage workers. Now, this greatly reduces the per capita income of the country, thus negatively impacting the economy. Now, when these daily wage workers and domestic help workers, most of whom come from rural areas of the country, when they're fired from their jobs, they have no further means of income. And so the only thing that they can do now is to go back to their hometown just so that they can afford even a single meal a day and can have a proper roof over their head. Now, this situation, which is exactly what is going on in India today, has led to the migrant labor crisis, due to which it affects the government, who has to, or rather should have to, spend a significant amount of money on the transportation and well-being of these people. Now, add this expenditure to the over rupees 200 crore expenditure the government has already incurred on healthcare facilities, the expenditure it further has to incur on thousands of ventilators, testing kits, PPE, research and development on a vaccine, restarting the economy, relaxing the lockdown, and the consequences it has, on top of the several other necessary expenditures, and the fact that India's market share has fallen by over 30% in the past 3 months alone. And it becomes crystal clear that by the end of the pandemic, which by the way is nowhere in sight, the administration would have no breathing room left, financially speaking, to even kickstart the economy, leave alone making it boom. And trust me when I tell you that whatever I have told you over the past 3 minutes is just the tip of the iceberg. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, I firmly believe that the post-pandemic Indian economy will go bust and not. With that, I rest my case. Thank you.
Judges, please note, the speaker took 3 minutes, 58 seconds.
I'm very sorry to announce that Amar Safi's network was a little low, for which he could not appear on the screen all the while. So I'm sure the judges will consider the case. And now for refutation, who is going to speak? It's Kashish. Kashish is going to refute.
Okay, Amar, don't you think that pandemic has instilled a sense of self-reliance within the country, as is evident that we are now able to produce what we want? Like, for example, consider PPE kits, which weren't earlier manufactured in the country, but now we are manufacturing it on a large scale and even supplying it globally at times when we have access.
Thank you for the question, ma'am. Even though I agree that the pandemic has instilled a sense of self-reliance among the people of the country, but the fact is that we are still trying to produce, we are still trying to meet the manufacturing demands. But the fact is that the country simply does not have enough resources. This is because of two facts. The first one is that the government has failed to provide any incentive for the people to work day and night to restart the economy. And the second is that the government simply does not have enough resources itself. Because even if you consider the 20 lakh crore stimulus package, 80% of that package consisted of loans. So the fact is that we simply do not have enough resources to promote that sense of.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Amar.
That was indeed wonderful, children. Shashwati ma'am, I would just take a second to welcome all my respected senior colleagues, principal colleagues, and again, our most respected founder manager who is here to listen to all these children. I'm very glad to welcome our most respected senior principal, Jyoti Kashyap ma'am, our most respected senior principal, Nisha ma'am, respected Sangeeta Banerjee ma'am. We have Reena Soti ma'am, principal of Anand Nagar here, Shivani ma'am of Aliganj, Samvida ma'am of principal of Aliganj 2, Ruchi ma'am, principal of Indira Nagar, Poonam Arora ma'am, principal of Rajajipuram 2. I hope I have covered everybody. If anybody else is there, I apologize. I've been looking for my friends in the session, and I'm so happy and glad that you're all here present to boost our morale. I'm also happy to see Nishi Mishra, the Vice Principal of Rajajipuram, Lama ma'am, Reema Sethi. I can see Rashika, lot many teachers and vice principals of the various campuses. So I'm very, very glad to have Aditi Sharma ma'am. Yes, I can see her now. Since your videos were off, I was trying to locate you. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being here. And I'm sure you must have all enjoyed and with these enriching, research which these children have done, and they have placed so much of facts before us. So thank you so much for everyone for being here. I think now Shashwati.
Congratulations to you, Jayashree ma'am. Congratulations to your team.
Thank you.
And to your students.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Aditi ma'am. Thank you, Jyoti
and they really researched well and spoke so well.
Congratulations, Jayashree. Your students were very, very convinced with what they were speaking. That was the best part about the whole thing.
Absolutely.
They were very good speakers, very well researched work, and fully convinced they were speaking. Very good. Excellent.
Excellent. Thank you so much. My children will be very happy.
It was really very good.
Thank you, Jyoti ma'am. Thank you so much.
Jayashree ma'am,
We keep learning from each other. Yeah?
Yes.
Come with the ma'am. Yeah.
Jayashree ma'am, excellent.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so
Shashwat
much.
Vimal was excellent.
Thank you. Lovely children.
Respected
Very
Jayashree
good.
ma'am. Respected Jayashree
Yes,
ma'am,
Amit.
it was excellent. Loved it. So much to learn from here. Thank you so much for making us a
Thank
part
you.
of it. We appreciate that.
Nisha ma'am is there. Welcome, ma'am.
Congratulations, ma'am. The children spoke very, very well. And always a pleasure to serve you and Shashwati ma'am as well. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I would request our most respected founder manager, Dr. Jagdish Gandhi sir, to say a few words and bless all of us. I hope sir can hear me. Is Prashant there to help sir? Yeah, I think by the time I think sir would again plug in, we can, Shashwati ma'am, you can request our most
Yes,
respected
ma'am.
judges to speak a few words.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I would first, tell that no wonder we had named our children the bulls and bears, the way they were tearing each other so enthusiastically. Before we proceed, I request our honorable judges to kindly submit their judgment sheets so that we can compile the result at our end over here. I'm sure I can see that it has been done already, submission has been done already. So
Yeah,
with
in
this, we
spite
come
of
to
the
the
physical
end.
distance, I think technology has brought us so
Yes.
close that they have submitted, they had been given a Google sheet to fill the results, and they have submitted it, and very soon I think you'll be seeing it on the screen also. Before we would like to request the judges to speak a few words.
With this, we come to the end of this virtual debate, and our esteemed judges have already given their scores on the Google form. Till the results are declared, may I request Dr. Chandana Mitra to please motivate our students and bless them with your kind words. Thank you, and over to Dr. Chandana Mitra.
Thank you. And can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
We can.
Okay.
We can.
Great. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank respected Senior Principal, Mrs. Krishnan, and of course, my dear friend, Mrs. Bhattacharya, for inviting me to serve as a judge for this debate competition, which argues and reasons over a contemporary and I think one of the most challenging areas or aspects of today's India. And this is not a concern for India only. But it's also something which every single nation in the world presently is dealing with. Because we are all connected through trade and commerce, maybe exchanging human resources, exchanging material resources, just like Kashish alluded when she said that, many other countries are dependent on India. And I hope so and wish that it always happens and remains that way. And hopefully things won't be changing after COVID-19 passes, as the crisis passes by. And as you know, that this whole COVID-19 pandemic crisis was so unprecedented. No one knew what to do when it began. And I'm sure that all of the nations, like we individually also are struggling. I just hope things will be better soon. And this absolute chaos everywhere, be it in the health sector, big and small businesses, migrant population crisis, which some of the students alluded to. And there's no one answer to any of these questions which we are asking now. And when I was hearing the debate, when each of these students were kind of fighting against each other, trying to make their point, I was wondering how similar the problems are here, even in the US. And I'm sure that Mr. Nair is going to, chime in with me on the same thing. Is that the same unemployment problems, poverty, though the manifestations are different in different countries, food crisis, health crisis, all seem so similar and, they're so real. I remember, I think Mustafa, he was talking about how the leaders are sort of blaming it on COVID-19 in some cases. Like yesterday, there was this Economic Times article on India and how the GDP has been low for the past 11 years. But of course, you know, how it is that generally it is either the state governments or, you know, how they are blaming it on COVID-19. And we have seen it even in the US. So this is kind of becoming sort of a normal thing for many countries, you know, the blame game thing going on. So anyway, and I think that there's a lot of uncertainty in the future. And hopefully, as the students have pointed out, there's of course light at the end of the tunnel. So we'll get out of this. But anyway, away from the serious stuff, I really want to talk a little bit about the participants. I have to admit, I am in awe with all of you, the bulls and the bears, Amar, Kashish, Aman, Mustafa. I'm just trying to memorize the names, Shashwat and Vishal. You were phenomenal. And your arguments for and against were so powerful. It was a very, very tough decision for me, and I'm sure for the other judges too, to not give you full points and kind of decide who's going to go first or second or third. You know, it was very tough on my side. And I have learned so much from you all. I've been sitting here and I was thinking, gosh, I mean, they are so smart. And what have I done all these years? You know, I mean, you know, maybe I should just go to CMS Rajendra Nagar and be with you, the smart kids, and learn something new from you guys. So, again, I'm absolutely bowled over by your performance. You were able to kind of ignite, you know, I would say some nodes in my brain, which I think were covered with rust for all these past years. So thank you for enlightening me with your intelligent insights. And not only to the participants, but all the other students of CMS Rajendra Nagar and the other CMS students who are, you know, on this virtual debate competition. All the best to you all, because you are a generation who is kind of getting into a completely new normal, which we, I mean, as your principal, your teachers, anyone, the judges, no one has ever, you know, gone through. So I wish you all the best. And I'm sure every one of you are going to do great. And all my best wishes for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Chandana. So we are bowled over. We are bowled by your wonderful speech. Very well said, and so endearing it was. I'm sure ma'am also agrees with me.
Yes,
thank you so much.
It was really very happy, very motivating for all the students and for us.
No, it was a pleasure on my side too. I can tell you. It's really late now, but I am so. I was thinking, gosh, it's going to be late, but now I am really happy that I'm on board with this. I tell you.
Yeah, really so whenever you are in India, you're going to be here with us.
Oh, sure, because Shashwati is a very good friend of mine, so we are sort of family. So absolutely, I'd love to, you know, visit her, which is always the plan, and then visit CMS too. Thank you for the invitation.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Chandana. We'll always have you here. Next in the line, we have Mrs. Annabel D'Souza from D'Souza's School, Rourkela. Ma'am, can you please take up?
You need to unmute yourself.
Ma'am, you have to unmute yourself, I guess.
Now, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you are.
Okay, so Principal Ma'am Jayashree Krishnan, CMS Rajendra Nagar, judges, participants, and audience. Well, it's been a wonderful and unique experience for me today to officiate as a judge at this virtual debate 2020, organized by CMS. Well, CMS has always been a pioneer in all fields of education, and everything about them is unique, different, and king size. Like starting with the 56,000 students recorded in the Guinness Book of Records. Their conventions, conferences, sports meet. Well, I've been, associated or rather attending their conferences for the last maybe 35 years. So I know a good bit about CMS, and I think all of us are in awe of them. Well, this debate this morning was just awesome. Think of it, organizers and participants in Lucknow, judges and audience from across the globe. Well, this virtual world is a takeaway from the pandemic. That being said, I'd like to congratulate you, our young participants. You were extremely articulate, erudite, and vociferous, expressing your views on whether the post-pandemic Indian economy will boom rather. This pandemic, no doubt, has taken the whole world, not just India, the whole world by storm, and in the twinkling of an eye. And with this, I'm sure we will all see a new world order. However, human beings as a race are resilient as compared to all other species. And I'm sure we will adapt and rise like the phoenix from the ashes. To our participants, I'd like to say, to be a good orator, which I can see all of you were, is the key. It enables you to convey your thoughts, ideas, and therefore by influence people, which is a very important leadership skill if you are going to make your mark. So well done, budding orators. Keep going. And audience, I do hope you've enjoyed this virtual debate 2020 as much as I have. And I would like to also add that I would like to thank my student Saswati and friend for having invited me to this awesome virtual debate, the first of its kind that I have attended. And thank you one and all for this wonderful experience. Thank you.
I'm humbled, ma'am. I'm humbled. I'm so
Thank you
happy
so
that you are
much.
here with us. Yes, and wonderful energetic talk, ma'am. And now we would like to have my another friend, Mr. Ramesh Nair from California, coming up as a judge. I mean, he's already judged the entire event. He's going to speak. Over to Ramesh Nair.
Hi, thanks, Aswati. Yeah, first of all, many thanks for making me part of this debate and to be able to witness the incredible talent of the participants. Honestly, as Dr. Mitra said, the debate has opened my eyes to a fresh point of view from the younger generation. See, the people like us who are in the corporate world, we tend to look at the economy through our own experiences, which is a very limited perspective of the issue. It was really refreshing to hear it from the participants who are today affected by it, who will be part of the solution, who will be driving the economy in the future. So it was completely refreshing to see their points of view. My only other opportunity for these debates is with my son, who is around the age of the participants here. But I must say those discussions do not always end so amicably as this one. Actually, when I saw the topic for the debate, I was wondering if this is a topic too difficult for school students. It's a topic that's being debated by corporate execs. It's being debated by economists in India, all over the world. Yes, Kashish, as you said, even the experts are grappling with what is happening. They don't always get it right. As Shashwat said, the states are part of the solution, and we can see the same problem as Dr. Mitra said, that we can see the center-state tussle in the US. It's common all around the world. But of course, CMS knows the caliber of his students, and they knew that they could pull it off. So my congratulations to the participants here, and also to the general debating standards of CMS Rajendra Nagar, which I'm sure is representative of the entire school. And I'm sure there are many other talented debaters in the schools who did not get a chance to speak today for lack of time. But thanks for inviting me to this event. My best wishes to CMS, to the principal Jayashree Krishnan, to the staff and officials of the school who created and nurtured such talent. And Saswati, thanks for making me part of this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nair. Thank you.
And with this, we have come to the end. And before we display the result on the screen, may I request our Vice Principal, Mrs. Rita Fleming, to propose the vote of thanks.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
You are.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Video
Yes,
is off.
yes.
Your
Right,
video is
right.
switched off.
And now I'm audible as well as visible. Thank you so much, everyone. And that was a lovely exchange of ideas. Thank you so much, my snorting bulls and my snarling bears. Jesse Livermore had once said, and I quote, "It is not the bear market that is always right. It is not the bull market that is always right. It is always the right market that's always right." So let's keep that in mind. I take this opportunity to thank our respected management for their gracious presence. Our respected founder manager, Dr. Jagdish Gandhi, respected director, Dr. Bharti Gandhi, our CEO, Dr. Geeta Gandhi Kingdon. I know, ma'am, this topic is very close to your heart. Director of Strategy, Mr. Roshan Faruhi, Ma'am Sushmita Basu, Head Care. I also thank our eminent panel of judges, Mr. Ramesh Nair, Ma'am Annabel D'Souza, Dr. Chandana Mitra for bringing their expertise to the table and for making this event so special, coming from all corners of the world. A big thank you to the respected principals from all CMS branches, all my colleagues, and my lovely children. Last but not the least, I thank the ISC in charge, Kalpana Singh, Mrs. Kalpana Singh, Mrs. Shashwati Bhattacharya, the moderator of the event, and of course, the captain of the ship, our respected principal, Mrs. Jayashree Krishnan. Believe me, ladies and gentlemen, she is a fireball of enthusiasm and energy. Thank you so much, ma'am, for always being there, for guiding us, for supporting us. We will never go wrong with you around in the campus. Thank you once again, and thank you for being the wing beneath our wings. Over to you, Shashwati, ma'am.
Thank you.
I second your
Thank
words
you
so
so
strongly.
much. I can see.
It is not
Shashwati
just
ma'am,
a ball of
we
fire.
have-
Yes, ma'am, please. Please, ma'am, please speak.
We have our most with us. I request sir to bless us all. Sir, if you could bless the children and all of us with your motivating words. Prashant, if you're there, you may unmute, sir. Sir, if you could say or speak a few words. Yeah. Prashant, if you can unmute, sir. A very good morning, sir. I hope you can hear me. प्रशांत सर को अनम्यूट करो सर को बोलना He is such a great inspiration and motivator for all of us. He is always busy with his work, and I'm sure now, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir. We are very, very happy and glad to have you with us, sir. I would like you to speak a few words and bless us all.
मैं बहुत प्रशंसा करता हूँ आपकी डिबेट को ऑर्गेनाइज करने के लिए और आपके बच्चे बड़े एलोक्वेंट हैं और बहुत ही लॉजिकल बातें उन्होंने कही हैं। मेरी बहुत बहुत बधाइयाँ आपको और खासतौर से बच्चों को जिन्होंने बहुत ही सुंदर तरीके से अपने अपने बहुत ही लर्नड तरीके से अपनी बातों को रखा। बहुत बहुत बधाइयाँ, धन्यवाद।
थैंक यू सो मच सर, थैंक यू। बच्चे आप ही से सीखते हैं सर, बच्चे आपसे सीखते हैं। यू आर द बेस्ट ऑरेटर फॉर ऑल ऑफ अस।
So yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have the umbrella, Dr. Jagdish Gandhi with us. And it is very well said and very truly said that without him and without his motivation and inspiration, perhaps such a wonderful school, such a school which is already being registered in the UNESCO and the Guinness Book of World Records must not have been featured so very well. Thank you so much, sir, for being always with us, motivating us, encouraging at every step that we take. Thank you so much, sir. And now, since the results are already prepared, we are going to flash the result shortly. It's all set and done. Please hold your breath. And it is coming. We begin with the third position holder. And it is none other than, let it come on the screen, the third position holder, Shashwat Vimal. Congratulations, Shashwat. That is a wonderful feat. You have actually virtual clapping for you. You have done a wonderful job and congratulations. Now, the second position holder. Coming up on screen. Yes, 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 Kashish. Kashish Agarwal, congratulations. Thank you, judges. Wonderful. Congratulations, Kashish. And the big question is, who is that fighter bull? Let us see who is that fighter bull here on the first. Oh no, Mustafa Zamir. Congratulations. Congratulations, Mustafa Zamir. But let me tell you all, even our other three speakers were no way less. They were all extremely good, but I'm sure the judges have taken a very good decision. They have been really working and listening very carefully. Thank you so much, judges. Congratulations, but don't get disheartened. My other speakers, you all were very good fire brands. Thank you, and maybe end here, ma'am. Thank you so much, everyone.
Congratulations to each and every child who has made such a good effort, has made such a wonderful effort to put their points forward. And I congratulate the winners. But the other three, as we said, they're all our best bulls and bears with us. And I'm sure you're going to do very well in life. And the way you have all put in your effort, excellent children. Congratulations to each and everyone. And thank you each and everyone for being here with us and enjoying this debate. I once again thank all the judges, all my respected senior colleagues, teachers who have really put in so much of hard work in preparing, organizing this debate, and not to forget the IT team who has actually made it virtually, happen without any, glitches, any technical glitches. Everything went off very smoothly, and I'm very, very happy and thankful to each and every one of you. So here we end the debate. Thank you so much.